When I got the job at Creighton in '03, John had been there for several years. He was an established coach, obviously. He'd had great success at Wisconsin. And I think one of my first or second years at Creighton, I'd reached out to ask if he would have lunch with me. I was very intimidated by John. Obviously, he's a phenomenal coach, and I just thought it was really gracious of him, and I've tried to pay that forward to younger coaches. I think at the time he realized his program and volleyball in general in our state will be better if Creighton's strong. In the early 2000s, it was an RPI killer for him, but he still played us. So I appreciated it then, but I think now as I'm older, I appreciate it even more. I didn't talk to John regularly, but I always felt comfortable to call him, and so it was always good to get his perception, and he's assertive for what he's fighting for. His big thing was to grow the sport of volleyball. The low-hanging example is the Memorial Stadium game. That is outside the box thinking. The other thing that he did that I think really affected, his program, but I think also helped college volleyball, was moving to Devaney. And I know that on the outside that seems like, oh, well, why wouldn't you want to do that? Well, because you're packing the Coliseum and all of a sudden you double the size. What if you don't pack it? It changes everything. What Nebraska volleyball has done and the way they've filled up stands is they have been the framework of what can happen nationally for NCAA and now for pro. John was always a learner, and I think the other X factor that a lot of us don't do in any field is he self-reflected. He evolved as a coach. I mean, a simple example fans would see is he used to stand. And, he may listen to this and say I'm wrong, but what I'd heard was that he got feedback from his players that they didn't really love him standing. Well, a lot of us coaches say, tough, this is what I do. But instead, he began to sit. So that might not seem like a big deal, but that's a big deal. That's listening, that's learning. He really saw some things that he wanted to get better at, and that advanced the program even more. And I also think his players enjoyed the process maybe more as he did some of that evolution. That's not just coaching, that's running a business. I need to listen to feedback. How are people going to be their best with me at the helm? And so he did a lot of learning. I think the fact that he's gotten so much into rodeo is an example of trying new things of life. Stuff that I wouldn't want to do, like I don't really want to fly with the Blue Angels, but like he went and did some things that I think, obviously they picked it up in media, but I think he's willing to try things and kind of evolve as a human. Nebraska had match point to sweep us, and they get a perfect pass and they dish it behind. And Ava Martin, she goes up and houses it. That ties it back up, and we go on and win that epic third set, 32-30. Unfortunately, losing 5. But that moment of Ava going up and getting that block on match point was pretty special. I always felt like the media and the fans made it seem probably on both ends a bigger match than it is. I mean, it's awesome. It would always play out this way. The years that we were like, okay, we're gonna be really good, Nebraska was #1 in the country. I was waiting for that year that Nebraska dipped a little bit, and it just never played out real well for us. But some people would say, like, is this the biggest match of the season? And it wasn't. When I would say this, and I think John would say the same thing, it truly was a celebration. I mean, a lot of times, for many years, it was, half the kids on the court were from the state of Nebraska. I mean, how awesome is that? They won a lot, and I think you can sometimes just stop at that and expect others to do the thinking of how you move your team, how you move the sport when you win. But I think John was thinking, even though we're winning, but how do we get bigger crowds? How do we do something unique? how do we expand this to, thinking outside the box? And I think he did that.
Well, all I can say is it's a great day to be a Husker.
He pushed the limit on coaches' salaries, which is great. He utilized his staff in ways that I think people learned from, meaning he let them do a lot. And I think that shows humility when you're comfortable. A lot of times, in the last couple of years, Jalen would lead a timeout. Well, you have to be confident to be able to do that. And I think he showed a lot of coaches that letting people do things doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing.